The text came through on a Tuesday morning while I was folding my dress blues for the cleaners. My brother's name flashed on the screen. A message that started with "Hey sis" and ended with a request that felt like a slap I hadn't seen coming. Can you wear something else to the wedding? The uniform thing might be a bit much for Vanessa's family. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't call him immediately. I just stood there in my small apartment, hands resting on the jacket I'd earned through 4 years of service, to deployments, and more late nights than I could count, and felt something inside me go completely, permanently still. My name is Captain Riley Morrison. I'm 32 years old, and for most of my adult life, I believed family meant being proud of who you are, not who they want you to pretend to be. I'm a logistics officer in the United States Army, which means I spend my days coordinating supply chains, managing personnel, and making sure soldiers have what they need when they need it. I built a career on precision, on seeing the details others miss, on understanding that every small decision creates a larger pattern. I just never thought I'd need to read my own family like a mission brief. My brother Nathan is 3 years younger than me, always the golden child in our parents' eyes. The one who went to business school, got the corporate job, bought the house in the right neighborhood. We grew up in suburban Connecticut, in a family where success looked like corner offices and country club memberships, not combat boots and deployment orders. When I joined ROTC in college, my mother asked if I was sure I wanted to throw away my degree. When the first commissioned as a second lieutenant, my father said he hoped I'd get this phase out of my system when I deployed to Afghanistan the first time. They asked if I could request a desk job instead. For 12 years, I'd served quietly, coming home for holidays in civilian clothes, downplaying my work, making myself smaller so they'd be more comfortable. And for 12 years, I told myself it didn't matter because they loved me in their own way, even if they couldn't understand the way I'd chosen to serve. Nathan's engagement to Vanessa Clark came last spring, announced over Sunday brunch with both families present. Vanessa was polished, graceful, from old Connecticut money, the kind of woman who wore pearls to casual dinners and spoke 3 languages fluently. Her family owned a maritime insurance company that had been in business for 5 generations. She was everything my parents had hoped Nathan would marry, a symbol of arrival into the circles they'd spent their lives aspiring to join. The wedding was planned for June, a garden ceremony at Vanessa's family estate. 200 guests, a 10-piece orchestra, the kind of event that gets featured in society pages. My mother called it the wedding of the season. I called it what it was, a production where every detail had been curated for maximum impression. When Nathan first asked me to be in the wedding party, I'd been honored. Then came the clarifications, the small requests that added up to something larger. Maybe you could grow your hair out a bit before the photos. My mother suggested over coffee, and we were thinking maybe a softer shade of lipstick. Vanessa added during dress fittings, something more romantic. I agreed to most of it because I understood weddings had aesthetics, and I wasn't trying to make things difficult. But when Nathan texted about the uniform, something shifted. I read the message 3 times, each time catching a new detail. Can you wear something else? Not asking if I planned to wear my uniform, assuming I would. The uniform thing might be a bit much reducing. 12 years of service to a thing for Vanessa's family, not for him. Not for our family, but for hers. I sat down at my small kitchen table and did what I always do when something doesn't add up. I started pulling threads. I called Nathan that evening. He answered on the 3rd ring, voice cheerful. Hey, Riley, did you get my text? I did, I said evenly. I wanted to understand what you meant. There was a pause. The sound of him moving to a quieter room. It's just, Vanessa's family is pretty. Traditional, conservative, the uniform might come across as, I don't know, political? Political, I repeated. Yeah, you know how people are these days. Everything's so divided. We just want the day to be about love and celebration, not about, statements. I let the silence sit for a moment. Nathan, I've worn my dress blues to every military wedding I've attended. It's tradition. It's respectful. What statement do you think it makes? He exhaled, that familiar sound of frustration when I wasn't agreeing fast enough. Come on, Riley. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Just wear a nice dress. Mom already offered to take you shopping. Did Mom suggest this? I asked quietly. Another pause. We all just want the day to go smoothly. I hung up and opened my laptop. I'm trained to notice patterns, to see when individual pieces of information connect into something larger. Over the next 3 days, I started documenting. My mother called twice, both times mentioning how elegant the bridesmaids would look in their matching gowns, how cohesive the photos would be. Vanessa's sister tagged me in a Pinterest board labeled Classic Garden Wedding Aesthetic, featuring photos of bridesmaids in flowing pastels. Not a military uniform in sight. Nathan texted again with the name of a boutique where I could find something appropriate. I screenshot every message, every call log, every passive suggestion. Not because I was planning something, but because I was starting to see a coordinated effort to erase a part of who I was for the comfort of people who'd never asked what my service meant. I thought about the last 12 years, the 4 a.m. physical training sessions, the deployment where I spent 7 months managing supply convoys in 120-degree heat, the memorial service I'd attended for a soldier who didn't make it home, the flag I'd helped fold for his mother. That uniform wasn't a costume or a political statement. It was a representation of sacrifice, commitment, and service that predated any of us. And my brother wanted me to hide it so his in-laws wouldn't be uncomfortable. I want to be honest about something. There's a particular kind of hurt that comes from family asking you to be less than you are for their convenience. It's different from strangers misunderstanding your choices. It cuts deeper because these are the people who are supposed to know you, supposed to celebrate what you've built, supposed to stand beside you even when it's complicated. I sat with that hurt for 2 days, and then I did what I always do. I made a plan. I called my commanding officer, Colonel Denise Hart, a woman who'd served for 26 years and understood family dynamics in military life better than most. I need advice, I told her, and explained the situation. She listened without interrupting, the way good officers do. What do you want to do, Captain? She asked when I finished. I want to wear my uniform, I said. It's who I am, then wear it, she said simply. But be prepared for the reaction. I thanked her and was about to hang up when she added something that changed everything. Riley, there's a Veterans Association in Connecticut that does honor guards for military weddings. If you want, I can make some calls. Make sure you're not standing alone. I hadn't cried about the uniform situation until that moment. Sitting at my kitchen table with my phone pressed to my ear, hearing my CO offer to make sure I had backup. I don't want to turn his wedding into a spectacle, I said. You won't be the one doing that, Colonel Hart replied. You're just going to show up as yourself. If that makes people uncomfortable, that's their problem to solve, not yours. I thought about it for 2 more days. Then I made my decision. I would attend Nathan's wedding in my dress blues. I would stand in the family photos. I would celebrate his marriage. And I would do it with the same dignity I brought to every official function I'd ever attended. If my family was embarrassed by 12 years of service to my country, That was something they'd need to examine, not something I'd need to hide. But I also did something else. I set up my old camera, the one I'd used to document missions overseas, in my apartment. And I started recording video diaries, explaining the situation, what the uniform meant to me, why I'd made the choice I'd made. Not for revenge, not for social media, but for documentation. So that if this went the way I suspected it might, there would be a record of what actually happened, not just the version my family would tell afterward. The week before the wedding, my mother called. Her voice had that tight quality that meant she'd already decided something and was now informing me. Riley, Nathan, and Vanessa would really appreciate it if you'd reconsider. The uniform situation. I was folding laundry, the phone on speaker. I've already made my decision. Mom, you're being selfish, she said, the word landing like a stone. This is Nathan's day, Vanessa's day. Why do you have to make it about you? I set down the shirt I was holding. How is wearing my dress uniform making it about me? Because you know how it looks. You know, it'll make people uncomfortable. You're choosing to cause problems. There it was. The logic I'd heard my whole life. My choices were fine as long as they didn't inconvenience anyone else. My service was admirable as long as it stayed invisible. Mom, I've worn civilian clothes to every family event for 12 years. I've downplayed my career, changed the subject when people ask about deployments, made myself smaller so you'd all be more comfortable. This is one day, one event, and I'm asking you to be proud of me for 3 hours. We are proud of you, she said, but the words felt hollow. We just don't understand why you have to make such a statement. It's not a statement. It's my uniform. She hung up. I added the call to my documentation, noting the date, time, and key phrases. You're being selfish. You're choosing to cause problems. Why do you have to make it about you? The same language Nathan had used. The same framing. This wasn't individual concern. This was coordinated messaging. 2 days before the wedding, Vanessa called. We'd never been particularly close, but she was always polite, always gracious in that practiced way people from old money are. Riley, I wanted to reach out personally. I know there's been some tension about what you're planning to wear. I waited, giving her space to make her actual request. I just want you to understand how important this day is to my family. My grandmother will be there. She's 93, very traditional. The sight of a military uniform might be startling for her. I almost laughed. Vanessa, your grandmother lived through World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. I'm pretty sure she's seen a military uniform before, yes. But she paused, recalculating. It's just that we've worked so hard to create a specific atmosphere. Romantic, timeless, classic. The uniform is so formal, severe. It might clash with the aesthetic we're going for. And there it was. The truth underneath all the careful language. This wasn't about politics or tradition or anyone's comfort. It was about aesthetics. About me not fitting the picture they'd curated for their perfect day. I appreciate you being honest, I said. But I won't be changing my plans. Her voice cooled noticeably. Then I hope you understand if there are consequences. I thought about asking what kind of consequences she meant, but I already knew. The family photos I'd be excluded from. The reception table I'd be seated at in the back. The quiet ways families punish members who don't conform. I understand completely, I said and meant it. After I hung up, I reviewed all my documentation. The texts, the calls, the careful escalation from can you to you should to there will be consequences. I organized it chronologically, backed it up to cloud storage, and prepared for what I knew was coming. I wasn't doing this to humiliate anyone. I was doing it because I'd spent 12 years serving something bigger than myself, and I was finally done making myself smaller for people who couldn't see past their own comfort. The morning of the wedding arrived clear and bright. Perfect June weather for a garden ceremony. I dressed carefully in my apartment, each piece of my uniform checked and rechecked. The blue jacket with its brass buttons, the white glove, the ribbons, repre deployments, commendation, service. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw not a statement or a costume, but a captain in the United States Army who'd earned every element of what she wore. I drove to the Clark estate alone. The circular driveway was already filling with luxury cars when I arrived. I parked near the back and walked toward the ceremony area, my low heels clicking on the stone pathway. I felt eyes on me immediately, guests turning to look, conversations pausing mid-sentence. I kept my spine straight, my face calm, the way I'd learned to carry myself through much more hostile environments than a Connecticut wedding. My mother saw me first. She was near the entrance to the garden, greeting guests in a pale lavender dress. When she spotted my uniform, her face went through a series of expressions: surprise, anger, something that might have been embarrassment, before settling on frozen politeness. She turned away without speaking to me. Nathan was standing with his groomsmen near a rose arbor, laughing at something someone had said. When he saw me approaching, the laughter stopped. He excused himself and walked over, his face tight. "Riley, what are you doing?" "Attending your wedding," I said calmly. "I asked you not to wear that. You asked." I declined. We stood there for a moment, the garden buzzing with arriving guests around us. And I watched my baby brother, the kid I taught to ride a bike and helped with homework and protected from bullies, look at me like I was a problem he needed to manage. "You're doing this to embarrass me," he said quietly. "I'm doing this to honor the commitment I've made to my country. If that embarrasses you, Nathan, that's something you need to examine." He opened his mouth to respond, but Vanessa appeared at his elbow, resplendent in her wedding gown. She looked at me, at my uniform, and her smile didn't waver, but her eyes went cold. "Captain Morrison," she said, each word precisely placed. "How interesting that you chose to make today about your career." I met her gaze steadily. "I'm here to celebrate your marriage. Nothing more." The ceremony started 20 minutes later. I sat in the fourth row on the groom's side, surrounded by family friends who whispered and glanced in my direction. I ignored them, focusing instead on the ceremony itself. Nathan looked nervous but happy. Vanessa was radiant. Whatever else was happening, they clearly loved each other, and I was genuinely glad for that. Then, halfway through the ceremony, I heard a sound that made my spine straighten automatically. Footsteps, measured and precise, coming down the center aisle. I turned slightly, and my breath caught. A man in his early 70s, wearing a navy dress uniform, with so many ribbons and medals it looked like a history lesson in valor, was walking slowly down the aisle. Behind him came 3 more veterans, 2 men and a woman, all in their dress uniforms, representing different branches, different eras, different wars. The ceremony paused. Every head turned. The officiant stopped mid-sentence as the veterans approached the front. And the eldest, the Navy veteran with the chest full of medals, stopped directly in front of my row. He looked at me, then at the empty space beside me, and spoke in a voice that carried across the silent garden. "Captain Morrison, is this seat taken?" I recognized him then. Admiral James Whitmore, retired. A man whose name appeared in history books, who'd served in Vietnam and commanded carrier groups and had more commendations than I could count. I'd met him once at a military event, briefly, years ago. He'd been Colonel Hart's mentor. "No, sir," I managed. He sat down beside me. The other 3 veterans filed into the row behind us. The Admiral looked forward at Nathan and Vanessa, then at the assembled guests, and said in that same carrying voice, "Please, continue. We're here to witness this young man's wedding and to honor the service of his sister." The ceremony resumed, but everything had changed. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Phones came out, discreetly at first, then more openly. The garden that had been curated for romance and elegance now contained a flag officer and 3 additional veterans. Their presence impossible to ignore, impossible to minimize. I sat perfectly still, barely breathing, understanding that Colonel Hart hadn't just made calls. She deployed a tactical strike. Nathan tried to focus on his vows, but his eyes kept drifting to our row. Vanessa's family, seated on the bride's side, looked confused and uncomfortable. My mother, 3 rows behind me, was pale, and I sat there, a captain surrounded by warriors who'd served decades before I was born, and felt something I hadn't felt in 12 years around my family: pride. When the ceremony ended and people moved toward the cocktail hour, Admiral Whitmore stood and offered me his arm. "Walk with me, Captain." We strolled through the garden, the other 3 veterans flanking us, and conversation stopped as we passed. The Admiral spoke quietly, for my ears only. "Colonel Hart mentioned you were having some family difficulty regarding your uniform." "Yes, sir." "And you chose to wear it anyway." "Yes, sir." He nodded approvingly. "That takes courage, Captain. Not the same kind as combat, but courage nonetheless." We reached the reception tent, where tables were set with elaborate centerpieces and place cards. The Admiral found my assigned seat at a small table in the back corner, far from family. He picked up my place card and walked to the head table, where my family was seated. He set my card down beside my mother's. "Captain Morrison will be sitting here," he said, pleasantly to the confused event planner hovering nearby, with her family, where she belongs. My mother started to protest, but the Admiral smiled at her, the kind of smile that allows no argument. "Ma'am, your daughter has served her country with distinction for 12 years. She's earned the right to sit wherever she damn well pleases. And today, she's sitting with her family." The tent had gone quiet again. Phones were out everywhere now, capturing every moment. I realized with sudden clarity that this wedding would indeed be featured in society pages, but not for the reasons Vanessa had planned. It would be remembered as the wedding where a family tried to hide their daughter's service, and a decorated admiral showed up to make sure she was honored anyway. Nathan appeared at my elbow, his face flushed. "Riley, can we talk?" "Privately." We walked to a quiet corner of the garden, away from the gathering guests. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I'd seen since childhood when he was overwhelmed. "What is happening? Who are those people?" "They're veterans, Nathan. They came to support me. You did this on purpose. You invited them to embarrass me." I looked at my little brother and felt a wave of sadness. I didn't invite them. I didn't even know they were coming. But the fact that you think their presence is embarrassing says everything.